Start the recording.
I'm in the furthest corner from my modem.
Your
and
internet.
stuff.
Yeah, you're if you start like going weird, I'll let you know. But you're good. You're good right now.
Closer.
Loud and clear.
Move over to
Loud.
Deborah's spot.
Loud and clear. Okay. Hi everybody. Monday, August 15th. Tea time. It's like we were just talking in the waiting room about Friday's incident with Salman Rushdie, and boy, that really hit home for me.
It did for me too.
We hosted him twice. In my tenure, I don't know that the store hosted him before me though. I'm not. I don't think they did, but I could be. Somebody's going to yell at me and tell me that I'm wrong, but I don't think that they did prior to my tenure there at the store. And we hosted him the first time for Joseph Anton. And I want everybody to go back to 2012. Okay, that's 2012.
Right.
And it was gearing up to be a very, very bad year. We hosted him in, I believe, September. There was just about 6 weeks prior to our event was when in Denver, there was the mass shooting in the theater. It killed 12 people.
Right.
So Joseph Anton comes out. They upped the fatwa by another like $500,000. So we were all at the store, and me personally, I had very many sleepless nights about it. I mean, it was just like we're on a university campus. It was one of those things that was very, very nerve-wracking. But he did not want visible security. Mm-hmm. He did not. He wanted to move beyond what he had lived through during those years with Joseph Anton. And one of the things he said, and he said it at almost every event that I watched, because when he was with the 10 years that he was with, had to have security in London, the whole bit. A few years after that, America was one of the places that said, hey, you want to come and just like try and live your life at your risk? Go ahead, come to America. And he said he always felt safe in America. And it was just one of those things that when that happened on Friday, I was just like, damn
and
it.
The place that he was speaking was seemingly the safest of places.
Correct.
Chautauqua.
And, my husband even asked, he said, why wasn't there like those metal detectors that you go in? I said, I do event. This is what I do. I do events. I'm an events director. And I said, you can't afford to have security and metal detectors. Nobody's going to pay a $60 ticket to come to an event so that we can have metal detectors.
Right. Well, and this was a place where people are living in community, in peace. They have regular speakers at this morning hour.
Right.
They're retirees, they're young children, they're all,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if we get to a point, I don't know. I mean, I just hope that, we're going to need metal detectors to go to the grocery store then.
Sure.
But like that opens our other can of worms. But
yeah, it does. But it was just one of those that it was just like I felt I was just devastated. I mean, I couldn't refresh my feed fast enough until I found out. I think it was like either Sunday night or Monday that he was off the ventilator. He was talking.
Yeah.
He still has a road to recovery, but he looks like he is going to survive this.
Well, it looked very bad initially. Very bad.
Very bad. So I didn't mean to bring everybody down, but
I mean, it took me back to, I came to Viking after the Satanic Verses, just after.
Okay.
But it was very fresh in the minds of, what everybody at the company had gone through and bookstores. So it took me back to that time.
And one of the things he said at the, he said it wasn't really, he said it changed publishing. It changed how people looked at things. I mean, it was really one of those defining moments, but he called out and he said the booksellers were the ones that they were really the front line of this thing. Not really him. He was under protection. He had bookstores that like when people we were threatening bookstores for selling this. And he said people would the bookstores would contact him and say, and then we put a big stack in the window.
That's right.
A bigger stack in the window.
You
Yeah.
know, it's just like it's like that the booksellers were really the front line, and he recognized that and he acknowledged that, and he just like they were the ones that really took on the front line of this thing.
And it's terrible to be reminded in this way, but we've all become more complacent about this kind of thing. And so now we're not complacent anymore about speech, about safety.
And his thing is this is the epitome of what free speech is. That is what he is the poster of that, and what it should be and what we should all be fighting for. So anyways, we went on. We have to be off at 4:45 today. I don't know who the events director is who scheduled an event at 5 o'clock, but
fire that person.
Fire that person. All right. So let me go back. Unfortunately, Gabe, even though you went off screen, you're still first. So
what does a guy have to do?
Just thought I'd tell you that. I know you tried, but you're still first, my friend. So
why do I want to follow him? That's the real question.
Again, you don't follow monkeys, you don't follow Gabe.
We don't follow Gabe.
I don't know what the correlation is.
I don't know, but it sounds right. I don't want to. I'm not going there. But anyways, Gabe, take it away.
If the host would enable the sharing screen.
I think I did, didn't I? Oh no! How many years are we doing this?
Go 2.5.
Don't yell at me.
Looking at 3.
Must be that same person that
scheduled that event
at 4:45.
Someone needs to have a talking to.
Okay, you should have it now. There you go.
Moth by Melody Razak. So this is a book that is garnering some really strong attention. I think it ended up getting. I don't have my cheating iPad with me today. I think it's gotten like 3-star reviews, like Booklist, Publishers Weekly, and Kirkus or Library Journal. So 3 out of the 4 industry big review things, avenues have given it a star review. It takes place in India. It is 1946. It is a young woman who is 14 and on the verge of being married. She's very excited about that. And this is a point in time where India is just coming into their own as a nation, and they're looking at splitting off the northeast section because of all the Muslim Hindu violence and all the interactions there. They're looking at the creation of the state of Pakistan. So it is a really interesting time historically, and Razak uses that pivotal moment in time to press her message about not only individuality, but what family and what you try to prevent as a parent. Everybody is hoping that this marriage is going to be good for this young woman because she'll be stable and she'll have support, she'll have a husband, and her life will be, on that golden road, on the yellow brick road path. But with all that's going on in the nation, things don't turn out as they do. And then grandma gets in the way and gets involved with the wedding and doesn't want a part of it. And everything sort of blows up personally, socially, and then diplomatically in the nation. And it's a powerful book. I think I might have mentioned one other time God of Small Things as a comp, but what was going on in God of Small Things takes place later in history. But again, it's that violence, the religious violence that's occurring, and the division in the nation, along with the political forces of creating a new state and things being what they are. As they were exploding into the sort of an unknown political future. So really interesting. I can't say enough about this book. I just really thought there's a lot to talk about. Once you get through it, a lot to talk about, and it's really well written. The writing is
how long is it?
It's a 300-page book.
Okay, it's a normal. Okay, so it's a normal size. Okay, I love the cover and I love the title.
Cool cover.
The cover is fantastic. The way that they've got her face. I mean, it's really good.
Yeah, it's not the same old cliche
Yeah,
looking jacket. You know, I think
Yeah,
it's nice to get
no.
away from the same old thing.
right.
Um,
It's hard, and it's hard to bet. Great package. So
yeah, and
is it out?
it's
Is
very
it out tomorrow?
minimalist looking. Even the quote that we use on top is just the observer powerful,
Right.
but it is powerful. It's powerful, and the writing is top drawer.
Is it out tomorrow?
This one came out last week. I
Last
saved
week,
this
okay.
from last week.
Okay.
I needed to talk about
Lots of
it.
good
Though.
stuff coming out right now. And usually August is kind of a slow month, but there's a
There
lot
are
of
no
good
slow
stuff.
months. No
Not
slow months in
anymore.
publishing.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. There's some really good stuff that's coming out in the summers. Okay, Kim, you asked who recommended Fellowship Point. I'm not sure if Shannon was on and did that, but I loved that book. So I'm
I
glad that
remember
you.
Julie recommending it, but
Yeah, I don't know if Shannon was on and we were talking about it or whether it
Yeah.
was just me, but I mean, I loved Fellowship Point. It was so good, so good. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, Tom.
okay. So my first book is All This Could Be Different by Sarah Thankum Matthews. So it's a first novel. So it's a really exciting debut. I love this first novel. Set in Milwaukee in around the early 2000s, just after the economic downturn. So you've got a 20-something just out of college. She's just getting her first job in Milwaukee, and you know it's a precarious time to be going out to work and making new friends and being an adult. So it's about all those things. At the same time, she's she's American, but her family's back in India. And she's queer. So there's a lot of things going on in her life that she's trying to figure out. And what I love about this book is that it's so hopeful. And you get that from the title, All This Could Be Different. Comes out. And so it comes out of, she wrote it during COVID. So there's both darkness and light just naturally in the book. But it's a coming of age. It deals very honestly with what young people are what their lives are like. And I also love that it's not set in New York or LA, it's set in Milwaukee, and you get a very strong sense of place. So really great first novel. It's getting tremendous attention, in kind of high and low places. So we've got quotes from Lauren Groff and Susan Choi, a lot of really great literary writers. But it's also the Good Morning America Buzz pick for this last week or this month. People Magazine's Book of the Week. So it's really lovely to see all this coming together for the book. In fact, what People Magazine says is really nice. They say this debut eliminates the hardships of immigrant life, the elusiveness of lasting romantic love, and ultimately the joy and belonging that can come from a quote family of friends. So she creates her own family basically. So great debut. Also calls to mind, I would say, Zadie Smith's White Teeth. So
I was thinking Celeste Ng.
yeah,
Everything I didn't tell you because of just the place being like she wrote the first one in Cincinnati. I think it was in
or
Ohio.
Cleveland, yeah,
Cleveland.
yeah, you're right.
And so
Yeah.
it kind of is bringing that to mind too.
Yeah, but it feels fresh, and it's great to have a buzzy debut like this in August, like you say, going into the fall. So it'll show up on a lot of lists as we get further into the year.
Yeah, no, I love it. I was just talking to Wade today about debuts. It's like, from an event standpoint, it's like I just need people to come back out again for debut events, because it really is the heart and soul of what we all do.
Yeah,
is highlighting new authors.
It's what we look for. It's what you look for.
And I love being at the front end. I mean, we were at the front end with Celeste.
Yeah.
Everything I never, it's just like, and now look at her.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the exciting part.
Yeah. All right, Gabe, round two.
Like this ping pong thing.
Two.
So my second book is Scandinavian author I really like, Olafs Son. So this is one of those books about regret, about life, about possibilities. It is takes place at the beginning of the pandemic when things are still pretty uncertain. It is restaurateur who is forced to shut down his business, like every restaurant did, and is at loose ends. He's got to figure out how to live. He's got all these things going through his head. He's getting a little older. He's getting on in years, and he is gets a letter, gets a quick note from a woman that he had a really passionate affair with decades, like 4 decades earlier. So you could see he's like into his 60s, probably 60s, early 60s, mid 60s, in London, and he it's one of those, it's the relationship that's been embedded in his mind all the time. You sort of wonder, do people have these people that they just never forget, in their relationships, in their lives? Is it their first love, or is it somebody, whatever? So he's had this person like inside of him, inside of his mind forever. And it was a really intense time for him. And he's never, one day she disappeared, one day she was gone, and he never got any closure. He just sort of had to put it aside, and there was no clean ending. So it's one of those situations of what happened, what went wrong. And so this desperation kicks in. So the desperation of him trying to communicate with her as he's trying to track her down. He goes from London to Japan. She's Japanese, Japanese descent. And it's the time where nobody's flying, you can't get flights, and you have to get on the last plane out before they close everything down. So there's this pace that's created by the situation. And then his real deep longing, it just pulls you along. This guy's a really interesting writer. The last book he wrote was about a nun and a priest in this really isolated place, and I couldn't put it down. So this is the fourth book we do with Olafs Son, and I think he's a really, really strong writer. And I think this book, I think it's got a lot to say, and some books are all about what's going on out there. This is really a book about the character and what he's going through and what he feels. So it's a pretty insular interior kind of a novel, but really I thought just good writing. He does a lot of things really well, and we always have a really great translator.
It sounds really good. Remind me again, what's the time period?
What's that?
What's the time period?
The time period, it's like right before the pandemic started,
Okay,
2020,
okay,
March.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, okay.
Right around there, and he starts.
And am I thinking of him or someone else? Like he has another life. Is he like a business person?
Yeah, he's like a CEO,
He's amazing.
like Sony or
I know.
or
Right. I've been fascinated by this writer. I have never read him yet, but it's incredible to me.
Yeah, that's a trip. I'm glad you brought that up, because he is I'm not exactly sure what the company is, but it's like one of those, Fortune 500.
A global
Yeah.
entity, right?
I love it. Well, this one sounds really, I think I saw on the bottom of the page, though, it's not out till September.
This one is out tomorrow.
Oh, it is. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah.
And then I got to go back to his last book, because a nun and a priest. Yeah, I'm interested. I gotta.
I'll send you a copy of that.
I know, right? Right.
Yeah, apparently, he was at Sony, and his leadership, the creation of a PlayStation video game, and he writes books.
Nuts.
I love it. I kind of love that, though, a lot.
I know, I do too. I love that these people that are these doctors and these business people who can write beautifully in their spare time.
Makes me feel like a schmuck. I can barely get on Zoom at 4:00 on Monday.
The Sam Shepherds of the world, man.
Speaking of being a schmuck, I'm about to describe that. That describes me and my relationship to the next book. Should I go ahead?
Go ahead.
So I'm going to go to some deep history book. These are old books that should be talked about and revived at this moment. And so the first one is a book called The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle.
Take us back.
Now, this was published in 1968.
Wow.
Turned into a film, an animated film in 1982. Now, in my defense, I've been selling this list for a very long time, but not always paperbacks. I used to just sell hardcovers. So that's my defense. But I barely knew this book oh, I don't read this kind of book. This is fantasy, right? I barely knew it was on our backlist until recently, just in the last month. I don't know what the old cover looked like, but this is they recovered it. It has a new introduction by Patrick Rothfuss, who is one of the top fantasy writers of our day, and it's a longer introduction, but it basically, the first line says it all. I love this book. And so it's about so it's considered, it's a minor classic or major classic, I don't know. The Atlantic called it one of the best fantasy novels ever. So just like we did with Dune a couple of years ago, we jacketed them long before the movie came out. And then, I knew barely anything about this until I started talking to booksellers. I was like, is this an important book? Should this be? And then I was schooled by a lot of younger booksellers. And then this past weekend, I think it was this weekend, the New York Times did a whole interview and feature on Peter S. Beagle, who wrote the book when he was 22, I think, 1968. He was 22. He's now 83. And the article was a happy story in the end, but it's about how the last 20 years or so, he got into a business relationship with a manager type person and basically lost the rights to his books and his intellectual property for a long time. He's gotten it back. It's all good now. Apparently we're gonna publish like another book by him next year. But it was a wild, fascinating story. And so Peter S. Beagle is on my mind. So if you like fantasy, this is apparently one of the classics, The Last Unicorn.
Okay, I want to read it because I dip into fantasy. I'm not like, I wouldn't classify myself as like, oh, I love all of it,
Yeah.
But I like Night Circus is kind of or Avalon or some of those are my sort of like dip into fantasy reading. So I
will make sure
good.
you get a copy.
Okay.
And apparently the movie is also, like, these things are iconic, not in my world, but in the wider world. Like the movie has a young Jeff Bridges.
So it's got a cult following.
Yeah, a huge cult following. And this is the 40th anniversary of the movie, so I think they're releasing DVDs. So there's good for him. There's a lot going on for him after kind of out in the wilderness for many years. And
wow.
Best of all, I now know about him. So there's
I love it.
Last Unicorn.
Well, Kim, who's on here, says she read The Last Unicorn in high school a few decades ago. She says definitely a classic, and she's got to reread it. So
Excellent.
I love that, and I love the cover. I didn't know what the new cover looked like.
Yeah, I'm sure the old cover was not good. This is great.
So Amanda has a question. Have you never seen the animated version? So no, you haven't. So it's epic. It has Jeff Bridges, Mia Farrow, Angela Lansbury, Christopher Lee. So lots of.
I will be finding this movie though. Yeah.
Yeah. And Sarita said it was a wonderful book too. So Tom, send me a copy.
I will definitely send you.
All right. Okay, Gabe. We got lightning round. I don't think don't have to do two lightning. It's only 4:25. We got time.
Well, like stroll down.
Stroll. We're gonna go a slow roll. Got a slow roll.
Bust out my ghetto stroll. Walk through the hood. Check things out.
Check
what's up.
Oh.
So I'm going to take a page at a time. I was going to present a paperback reprint, but I'm going to present Anya Seton. Now, I think I have the Anya Seton reader here. One of my wife's, Deborah's favorite book is The Green Darkness by Anya Seton. So they are historical and they're a little fantastical and there may be a little going back in time, back and forth kind of stuff. I think they would be called romance, but not like a Silhouette or a Harlequin, or even like even any kind of romance by today's standards. I think this is more like an old-fashioned kind of a romance novel in atmosphere and the historical aspect. It's not about I almost said grinding it out. It's not about bodice rippers. It's not about the clan, the Highlander, and with the kilt. Or so these are really good old fashioned tellings that will put you in a historical place. The Green Darkness is the Tudor era. And these books have been around for a long time. I think she was a bestseller like in the 60s and 70s, maybe late 50s, but definitely the 60s and 70s. These were really big. And these are from Houghton Mifflin. About, I don't know, a dozen years ago, I was at a call up in Seattle, and they had a whole stack of Anya Seton books, and they had just come out with these great packages. They've been kind of lost in the backlist over at Houghton Mifflin, Hachette. But they repackaged them. They got these great jackets on, and I just think dip in. They're available. They're all available in paperback. They're a good price, and I think there's plenty here for a broad audience to get behind. As I said, Deborah doesn't read like anything lightweight. If it's
Right,
happy,
right. She's a very strong reader.
serious,
I don't know. Yeah.
She doesn't, if it's cozy TV, cozy like a Northern Exposure at my house, I got to watch it by myself, or else I'll be labeled Maine.
Yeah. So I wouldn't put it in the category of other Boleyn girl then. I would not put it in that category.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I think there's a crossover reader. I think the Outlander reader for sure.
Got it. Okay.
Now,
Okay.
this is calling back something deep in the recesses, and I could be wrong, but do you remember a writer from that same period, 50s, 60s, 70s, Mary Stuart?
Oh yeah.
So
is a lot of Mary Stuart.
Am I right? These would be this similar or not?
No, those are, well, depends.
Those are Arthurian, but aren't they?
She did a Arthurian quartet, which is really good, real readable, but they're really true to the Mallory and and then she did a whole series of like light romancy things. These are little in between.
Sounds good, because especially now it's like, because that reader, that even the lighter romance reader is so voracious that they're looking for other things too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, there's a lot here, I think, for the commercial reader.
I think so too.
They're not like snooty books by any means. They're really like they were huge bestsellers. She was on the bestseller list, so very commercial reading.
And the thing about the historical, especially when you do they're timeless in a sense, because it's not like the contemporary stuff that really dates it as far as like, oh, I can't relate, I like it, because I think reading a contemporary like book from the 70s might not hold up into that.
I mean, those of us who were around in the 70s, we spot all the facts. Those of you who were, my dad talks about the 70s.
Yeah. What was that? I gotta go get my Grace covered. Anyways, okay, Tom, I'm actually gonna close with a couple of event things. But take us home on the last rec.
Okay, so this is sad for me, but it's a day for happiness and sadness. So Melissa Banks' Girl's Guide to Hunting and Fishing, which we published in 1999, died last week.
Oh no.
Yeah, last week.
Way too young. And so it took me back to 99 when we published this book. I looked it up. We sold over 1 million copies of this book. I knew it was big, but wow, that's a lot of copies of a book that was a collection of connected short stories in a time when that was kind of that form was just coming into its own. And also it was published in a year after Bridget Jones's Diary. I don't like to remember these times when we called that kind of book chick lit. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Not the proudest moment.
Not the proudest moment in publishing, but
no. But Melissa Bank was the antidote to that. This was perceived as higher literature, and it was great. I mean, I reread a couple of the stories. They stand up. It's one woman's life, but told through these short stories. It's coming of age, becoming an adult. And this cover became totally iconic.
Yep.
So it's nice to, we still have the book. If you haven't read it, read it. It's great. She wrote a second book, which was also very good, The Wonder Spot, and that was it, 2 books. I think there might be, they alluded to her working on another book, but I don't know where that is. And so from the obituary, I love this. So Carol DeSanti, who was the editor of that book,
Mhm.
She says, I just remember sitting down to read Melissa's manuscript in the same way that I sat down to read all of my submissions. And I, to this moment, remember where I was sitting, the chair I was sitting in my apartment, and the fact that I didn't get up because I just felt like I was in the presence of a voice that was doing something so different, so arresting, and had done it so carefully. So let's remember Melissa Bank.
I love that. I love that. And she was a pioneer kind of in that. I mean, that opened up a whole different avenue for writers that,
That's right.
you know, she was a little bit of a pioneer.
And I saw on Twitter a lot of younger writers calling that out and saying that book was, how important that book was to them.
And that's what kind of turned them on
Yeah.
to knowing that they could write that way.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know, it was very sad. I saw that last week too. Okay, well, Tom,
Now you're gonna bring us back up.
I'll bring us back. Well, we started off kind of
That's why Tom
of
shouldn't be
sad.
last, man. He brings
Yeah, brings us down.
The books
man.
are always, but the fact that we have the books, that's the up. That's always the up.
That's always the up. And the other thing is that it's like we kind of started out sad talking about Salmon, but that ended up with a good. But like you said, let's remember her and buy her book and reread it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what we got going on. So I'm super excited about Wednesday. We're hosting Julian Barnes for a virtual event for his new book, Elizabeth Finch, and Seth Blair is going to be in conversation with him. I just started this yesterday. We're doing it in partnership with a couple of the bookstores. I love Sense of an Ending. I mean, talk about it. It's like, but he's just one of those iconic writers. If you're not doing anything, there's free virtual that's free to get in. But once you're in, Elizabeth Finch is a character. Like I said, I'm only about halfway through the book. She's fantastic. So I love her, and his writing is just, he's spectacular. So love Julian Barnes. Scott Turo's coming in September to USD. Celeste Ng's coming in October to USD. Got all kinds of other wonderful. Jinsey Will will be in the store next week. Jesse Leone, I'm Not Broken. All of this, Rebecca Wolf. I mean, we've got some great stuff. Tonight, the 5 o'clock that I got to get ready for the photographer. So if you're not doing anything, just stick with us here. And then tomorrow, how the storm is how QAnon became a movement, cult, and conspiracy theory. So I can't wait for that one too. So we got some fun stuff going on, but I'm excited about Wednesday too.
Star-studded
Stuff. So, and we got other stuff that, that's just the next 2 weeks, and we looked at a little bit. But anyways, so we're done super early today.
We were told we needed to be done. So
we got it done.
Yeah.
That
whatever you need,
person.
Jules, whatever you need, that's what we do. Heavy lifting.
we deliver.
You guys deliver every time. All right, everybody. Good. Happy reading and good luck for this next week. And we will see everybody next week, next Monday. Ciao.